A country discovers oil. Another builds factories. A third prints money. Only one of them becomes rich. Not because of hard work, not because of resources, but because of a system most people never see. Right now, as you're watching this, trillions of dollars are moving across borders, not for trade, not for tourism, for something far more powerful: access to safety. And that single idea, where money feels safe, quietly decides which countries get rich and which stay stuck. We're told wealth comes from productivity, innovation, education, and yes, those matter, but they're not the deciding factor. The real game is played in balance sheets, bond markets, and reserve accounts. Here's how it works. Every country needs capital to grow, to build roads, fund companies, stabilize banks. When domestic savings aren't enough, they turn to global investors. And global investors ask one question: where is my money safest? Not where returns are highest. Safest. That's why, during a crisis, money doesn't flow from rich countries to poor ones. It flows the opposite direction. When fear rises, capital leaves emerging markets and rushes into U.S. Treasury bonds. Even if those bonds pay less, even if inflation is higher, safety beats growth. This creates a strange loop. Rich countries borrow at low interest rates because investors trust them. Poor countries pay high interest rates because investors don't. So the rich can finance deficits cheaply. The poor must pay more just to survive. Over time, the math compounds. A country paying 2% on its debt can invest in infrastructure, education, and technology. A country paying 9% is just servicing interest. One builds the future. The other pays the past. This is called the global capital hierarchy. But you rarely hear that phrase. Because it sounds structural, permanent, unfair, and it is. Look at what happens during a financial shock. Currencies in weaker economies fall. Their debt, often priced in dollars, suddenly becomes more expensive. To defend their currency, they raise interest rates, which slows growth, which scares investors more. It's a feedback loop. Meanwhile, the countries at the center of the system do the opposite. They cut rates, they stimulate, they issue more debt, and investors still buy it. Because the system is built around trust in their institutions, their legal frameworks, their military power, and their central banks. It's not just economics, it's geopolitics with spreadsheets. There's another layer most people miss: reserve currency status. When your currency is used globally for trade and savings, the world needs your money. Literally. Banks hold it, corporations borrow in it, governments store it. That means you can print currency to finance deficits without triggering the same collapse other countries would face. You export inflation. You import capital. It's an extraordinary privilege, and it explains why some countries can run deficits for decades while others face crises after a few bad years. Now here's the uncomfortable part. Even when a developing country does everything right, controls inflation, balances budgets, reforms institutions, it can still struggle. Because the system isn't just about policy, it's about position. If global capital sees you as risky, you pay more. If it sees you as safe, you pay less. That perception can take decades to change, sometimes longer than a political generation. So growth alone doesn't guarantee escape. You need credibility, liquidity, deep financial markets, a stable currency, and time, lots of time. This is why foreign investment often flows into government bonds instead of local businesses. It's safer, easier to exit, more liquid. So the capital that could build factories ends up financing debt. And the development gap persists. But the system isn't static. When central banks raise rates in major economies, capital drains from the rest of the world. When they cut rates, money floods back in. Local economies boom and bust based on decisions made thousands of miles away. It's a global monetary tide, and most countries are just trying not to drown. Here's the irony. The system that creates stability at the center creates instability at the edges. The safer one country becomes, the riskier another looks by comparison. Wealth concentrates, capital clusters, trust compounds, and that, more than productivity or policy, is what separates rich countries from the rest. So the next time someone says growth is just about working harder, ask a different question. What does it take for the world to trust your currency? Because until that changes, the hidden system keeps running, quietly deciding who gets cheap money, who gets expensive debt, and who gets to build the future. And the real question isn't whether a country can grow, it's whether it can ever move from the edge of the system to its center, without the rules changing first.